Greetings, wrestling fans. This is Jim Fannin, the guy you love to hate, or maybe you just hated my guts, period. I have the pleasure of leading you into the Mid-South Memories podcast. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the individuals making the statements, and they do not necessarily reflect those of Nick Maniwa, Mike Ruff, or the BNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only. The IWA Mid-South shows covered on this podcast contained adult themes. Violence for the sake of violence. Bloodshed for the sake of bloodshed. Explicit language. We're on these shows because if you ain't hardcore, you ain't shit. So that just leaves one thing left to say. Nick Maniwa, start the podcast.
Guys, gals, non-binary pals, we in here, Pro Wrestling's BFF, Nick Maniwa, joined by Mike Ruff of Ruff.Figures.com for another episode of Mid-South Memories. This month, we are doing Morris Mayhem from all the way back in March of 2002. Mike, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, Nick. How are you doing today? It's a fun episode today.
I'm super pumped for this one. I am doing particularly well. I got a lot of inside dirt from our good friend Jim Fannin, as he was the one kind of leading this charge to run this show. But, you know, we like to, or we have in the past done in the world during this time. So in the world at this time, Chris Jericho is your undisputed WWF champion. Lance Storm and William Regal are your WWF tag team champions. And Matt Hardy Version 1 is your WWF Cruiserweight Champion.
Wow. Jericho's first reign, right?
Yes, he had beaten Rock and Austin in the Triple Threat, and he is the undisputed champion. I think he loses it like shortly after to Triple H because, you know, of course. For the number one song on TRL, Enrique Iglesias, Escape is your top song.
Oof.
I know very little Enrique Iglesias. He was never on my playlist. He was never in my CD changer, to say the very least.
I hear you.
Mel Gibson's We Were Soldiers is the top movie at the movie theaters. Never seen that one.
Me neither. I hear it's good.
And then Alan Jackson's Drive was the top album in the Billboard charts. It featured the 9/11 tribute, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning?
Is that not the most country title of a song ever?
I'm surprised it wasn't the Toby Keith, you know, still. And then also, rest in piss, Toby Keith, you're a fucking terrible person. Also, on the top selling chart was the J-Lo remix album, which I did have because, you know, you have a female vocalist and any kind of remixing, and I'm all about it.
That's a good one.
So this show happened in March of 2002, March 2nd of 2002 to be exact. The night before the show, we had a show in Indianapolis, Indiana at the Knights of Columbus featuring the infamous Rey, Eddie, CM Punk three-way. In that match, of course, Eddie Guerrero won the IWA World title. So in the main event for this show, he will be defending it against former champion CM Punk. To start off, before we even get to the show, and I don't know, I guess I want to say Ian Axel and Jim Fannin was up in Morris already. They went to the school to do opening announcements, to do like a last minute push for the show. So, did your school do that? You know, over the PA, like what's on the lunch menu and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know that we ever had deathmatch wrestlers there. But
I want to say elementary school, I think it was, we actually had like a TV program opening announcements, and I was part of like the TV crew, and basically you would just ask people to rise for the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance, rather. And then you would just stand there awkwardly with your back to the camera as you, stared at the flag. And then they would announce, what was going on. So as they're right before they go on, the lunch menu, Salisbury steak and, mashed potatoes and blah, blah, blah. And then Axel grabs the mic and says, that's the lunch menu for today, but the lunch menu tomorrow, Saturday, is going to be serving chair shots and broken tables and, just cutting a wrestling promo on the opening announcements. And fans said as they were leaving, all the kids ran out of their rooms to watch them walk down the hall. He said he pretty much called himself a loser in high school on a previous podcast that he did. He said, as someone that, wasn't looked fondly upon in high school, he felt like, king shit leaving the
man hated
leaving the school that day. But because of that promo, a few of the teachers got so mad they tried to shut down the show.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which thankfully that did not happen.
Yeah, it sounds like a different world from, when I grew up, getting a car wash approved as a fundraiser was a hard step.
Right. Yeah.
And that thought went through my mind so many times while watching the show. Most of the show's pretty tame, but in the main event, I can't imagine how that conversation went. Right. Hey, we want to do this fundraiser. It's going to be great. It's going to support this. We're going to have, pro wrestling. We'll have Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio that you've seen on TV. And then we're going to have 6 guys cut each other and hit each other with wiffle ball bats covered in thumbtacks.
I think it's famous last words. Jim said that the football coach told Jim and Ian both, do what you do. And, Jim was like, okay, we'll do we'll do what we do, but, bring it back a couple notches. And Ian did not, have the same mentality for that conversation.
That sounds like a Johnny Cochran speech. Do what we do if you do not sue.
Right.
That's brutal. There are a lot of companies maybe that would fit within a traditional fundraiser for a school.
Chikara of old. Chikara of old would have been great for a fundraiser,
Yeah.
Some of the shows that I help out with now, like Paradigm Pro, they would be great for a school fundraiser, but telling Ian Rotten do what you do, I don't think was the right move.
Have you seen what he do?
Right. So some inside baseball. Eddie and Ray were booked for this show first, and then Ian added the Indianapolis show to get a double shot out of both of them. So that's what happened there. Multiple fans from the Louisville area went to the Indy show, but the weather was already calling for a possible snowstorm, so they decided not to go up to Morris. But we do have quite a few fans that made the trek up there to the Morris High School.
Do you know if the fundraiser was the reason why Eddie and Ray were brought in? Was it just to draw a big house?
I believe that's the reason that they were brought in. They the month before this, in February, we lost the House of Hardcore in Charlestown, the Blue Barn. So we were kind of not running shows and kind of figuring out what we're going to do next in terms of a company, IWA Midsouth at the time. So Jim saw it as, this town only cares about this football team. That's the only thing we have in this town. So he figured if he could get it as a fundraiser to raise funds for, new equipment or whatever they may need, that they could also double it as a big money, getter for the show and for the company to, possibly put a down payment on a building or a lease or rent for a building or whatever. And unfortunately, that snowstorm cost us probably about 500 people because we were on track to do, 900, 1,000 people at the show, in this giant gym. And even with the snowstorm, we drew about 550, 600 with the foot of snow on the ground. I was not in charge of doing the music for this show. My buddy Brian Red, who you've heard some stories about, he was the music man at this show, and I was actually in another gym that was attached to this big gym, and I was like selling merchandise. So like I didn't see a lot of the show. Mitch Page's wife Sherri was at the show, and she would watch the table for me to go out and watch, you know, the matches that I wanted to see, and then I did the same for her for the main event that Mitch was in. I believe we actually packed up stuff, so we actually both got to watch the main event.
So you were front row for Eric Priest and Brad Bradley, right? That's the one you wanted to?
No, I was not. I did not even know that match happened until I saw the Smart Mark video. This ring was Danny Dominion's ring. So Danny Dominion and his students, Brad Bradley, Eric Priest, I don't know who else that he had, set up the ring. It was it was cutting it close to ring set up because of the snow and stuff like that. But they got the ring set up, and I actually got to see Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio have like a sparring session, like an exhibition match with each other for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just like, grappling with each other and trying different stuff. And I was just like, this is, unbelievable. Like and nobody was filming. Smart Mark didn't turn on their cameras or anything. So, only the people there in person that got to see that, you always think back at like, man, I wish I had, more memory of that. Like you can see it, but you can't see all the detail. You know what I mean? So it's like, damn, why, right before, this was just as digital cameras and stuff started to get popular. So nothing, nothing, a little real player file or anything like that exists of that sparring session.
How cool is that though? And like part of the Eddie and Rey appearances in these IWA shows is, I think a big part of indie wrestling lore now. Like there was that stretch of time in 2002 where Eddie did, these shows. I think he did the first ROH show. I have to fact check that one. I believe it was the first one. And, it was kind of in between that period of not being on TV. And even at the time, he was a huge name, hadn't had the success that he would have in the next few years. But like ridiculous name, incredible worker. And I think the people who were involved in indie wrestling at the time still remember that as a special time. And like he only did a select number of shows. And if you were either there for one of those shows, or even if you saw one of those shows, in a DVD 6 months to several years later, it was something special. It wasn't the standard indie show. And it was, definitely something that I think you remember. And being there in person, especially, as a teenager at the time for you, that was huge.
Right, absolutely. My good friend Mouse, Robert, posted a thing a few months ago about saying, how like John Moxley and Chris Jericho and, you see sometimes like GCW is going to get Shayna Baszler for Bloodsport and stuff like that. He's like, is this what it felt like when like Ray and Eddie were coming to IWA and, Road Dogg fresh off TV and, this guy and that guy. And I never really thought about it, but, that's what it was like. It was like, we're this little podunk company in Charlestown, Indiana, in Kentuckiana, and then we have Eddie Guerrero, one of the greatest of all time, Rey Mysterio, one of the greatest of all time, just in our circle, traveling with us, jumping in the car and going to, Morris, Illinois from Indianapolis. And it's just crazy to think back of, how it was back then and how it kind of still is nowadays, but totally different, if that makes any sense.
It does. It totally does. It's definitely something special. And if you watch it, it's special.
Right. So we start off the show. Jim Fannin is the ring announcer. There was I guess, issues with Ian and Jim back and forth on the show because Jim kept calling it his show. And Ian's like, well, if you want it to be your show, you can pay all the bills and you can book all the talent and yada, yada, yada. So a lot of the Mid-American Wrestling people got to be on the show. And Ian was going to book their ring announcer, and Jim was like, absolutely not. I'm putting my foot down. I'll be the ring announcer, if anything. So Jim Fannin was the ring announcer for the show. We got
what a dick move that would have been.
right. He told me that
his moment.
he told me a couple weeks ago when I told him we were doing the show that he fought, and then the only thing he really won was being the ring announcer, because he just did not like the ring announcer from Milwaukee. I don't remember who the ring announcer was at that time. But Jim Fannin,
something special. I mean, there's something special about being the ring announcer, and I mean, the perception is that you're the MC, you're running the show,
right.
You know everything that's going on. And for a guy who grew up in that, environment as, like you said, not maybe the coolest person in high school, like that's a chance to be the man.
Right. And that's what Jim looked at this show as, kind of. We start off the show with Danny Dominion with Adara James taking on Billy Joe Eaton with Carmine Despirito, the Hustler Carmine Despirito. This match goes 11:39. During the entrance, we see like a local radio station is in like the balcony doing like commentary over the show. A rare no commentary IWA show at this point. Prazak was managing Punk in the main event, and maybe this is just speculation. He didn't want to be gone the entire night in case they needed something or whatever. So, no commentary on the show. And, like I mentioned, this is Danny Dominion's ring. Adara was his girlfriend, who was his valet, and they wrestled, with and against each other from time to time. They would later go on to do those WWA tours in Australia. So if you're a big fan of Andrew McManus ran wrestling companies, you can see Danny Dominion on a few of those shows. Billy Joe Eaton was a Midwest guy that mainly worked for Carmine's Mid-American Wrestling. Ian always really liked him. I think he was kind of like a journeyman wrestler, not in the sense of, going out everywhere, but he did do tours of like Germany and Austria, in like the 2000s. At one point, Billy Joe Eaton was a IWA Mid-South World Champion. Like, Ian lost the title in Michigan and then won it back at a show in Louisville. And I asked Prazak about Billy Joe Eaton once, and just, I didn't get to see a ton of him because I believe he won the IWA title in like 1998. So I'm like 9 years old, don't know what's going on, barely watching the shows as they happen. And Prazak just said he just didn't want to travel. He didn't want to, make the long hauls and stuff like that. This is his fourth to last match, according to Cage Match. He retired in June of 2002. We start the match with a very non-PG chant towards the bad guys as they hug.
Ooh, yeah.
And
in a high school.
Yeah. So me and Jim were kind of talking about this, and I said, a lot of this stuff that he had a problem with, because Jim and Rich Wayne, the mayor Rich Wayne, did a podcast a few years back where they talked about the Friends episode of the week, the Seinfeld episode of the week, and then whatever wrestling happened during that week. It's called Seinfeld, Friends, and Wrestling. You can find it. It's hard to find, but you can find it still on some podcast catchers and stuff like that. I asked Jim, I was like, I don't really remember how stuff was back then. I know how we did stuff later on, and we would have like a show meeting before the show and just run down the card, stay off the guardrails, don't go into the crowd, yada, yada, yada. And I asked Jim, I said, did you guys do anything like that? And he was like, no, not for this show, and not a lot. So
yeah,
all these, it's the early 2000s, but still you're chanting, non-PG stuff in a high school during a fundraiser. I see why Jim was so upset for his podcast a few years back, talking about Danny Dominion and, during the Chucky Smooth match that we'll get into next, talking about the chants towards him. Fannin said he hadn't watched the show back, until 16 years later when they did that podcast, and he feels like Danny was super vulgar in his match to sabotage the show because he didn't want IWA competition in Chicago because the Steel Domain was running, shows at that time. So, they didn't want, Ian coming into town, and that's his feelings. I don't know, if that's true or not, but that's how he felt. He felt like the vulgar chants, the music with cussing, the wrestlers using foul language, and the lackluster undercard really hurt a return show, and they would not return.
Maybe there is something to that, right? Because we got that with Danny's match. You get that with the Chucky Smooth match. You get a little bit of that with the Priest match. These are all Danny Dominion guys, right?
Right.
And those are the ones that kind of stick out the most with the vulgarity and the chants and just kind of playing up the things that would not be allowed in 2024.
Right. Just notes for the first match I have, Danny hits a crazy turnaround crossbody that seems like it's not going to hit, and it's somehow just the perfect, crossbody. I don't even know how to explain it. It seems like there's no way this is going to happen. And, the finish comes. Carmine hands off his pull cue as he's being ejected from ringside. Billy Joe Eaton goes to swing it. Adara Drame gets in the ring and stomps him and hits a sloppy head scissors on Billy Joe Eaton. For the 3 count. Danny didn't even do anything after this. He just pinned off of this botched head scissors. And then after the match, Danny claims that the pool cue is the sex toy for the heels, which Jim was fired up about on the podcast about that as well.
Yeah, he claims it smells like ass.
Yeah, I get it. It's, DX, suck it. That's the era, but come on, man.
Look at the audience. Look where you're at. Think about it. It doesn't matter what year we're talking about.
Right, you're true. That shit. That match went 11:39, and I think you will find, just like all these shows that we've ever done, shave a little bit of time off that, man. 8 to 10 minutes would have been great, or just hitting a move after your old lady botches a head scissors would have been fucking excellent too. But I digress. Next matchup.
Let me just a couple comments about.
Yes.
Danny Dominion, they announced him, I think, at 235 pounds. He looks like $1 million. Just put together, he looks like the real deal. He looks like a wrestler. The ring, like you said, Danny's ring, it also looks great. Bright blue would make the early 2000s SmackDown jealous.
Yeah, totally.
It looks great. Stepping back a little bit, you mentioned Jim as the ring announcer. Just to set the picture in your mind, Jim is wearing what I assume is his high school football jersey.
Yes.
Redskins, I guess Morris Community High School Redskins was the thing at the time. So Jim is fully decked out in his gear with the fanning on the back and everything. You'll notice throughout the crowd there's a lot of school spirit stuff and stuff on the walls. All of it is Redskins centric, and again, we're talking 22 years later. It's a different world we live in now, and even like the NFL, we don't have the Redskins anymore. They're called the Commanders now. There was a period of time where they didn't even have a name. They were just called the Washington Football Team. So as a football guy, admittedly, this kind of gets me going. I did a little bit of research. I guess in January 2022, the school board voted to retire the Redskin as the mascot. And the plan was to do so by, I think, the school year of 2025. Part of that plan, I guess, was to have a new name in place by January of 2024 or in March of 2024. There is no new name yet. It sounds like a school board, right? It's pretty typical. However, if all goes according to plan, Morris High School will no longer be called the Redskins. Very unfortunate. However, there are a couple different suggestions or names floating out there through my research, of course, that we found. Those proposed names are the Riverhawks and the Mustangs. And Nick, we talked a little bit about it. The Morris Mustangs has quite a ring to it. The Morris Riverhawks can't say as much about.
I don't know. I've never even heard of a river hawk. Is that a real animal?
Not sure what that is. It sounds less impressive than a regular hawk or a sea hawk or something.
Right,
A river hawk sounds, a diminutive version of a sea hawk. Anyways, the article also indicated that there was a suggestion from a resident in the public who suggested the red wolves.
Ass.
Paused for dramatic effect. The red wolves. And I imagine this, a school board setting, we have, the river hawks, the mustangs. Are there any other suggestions from the crowd? And some guy in the back is covering his face, probably with his face down, and he just blurts out, "Red wolves!" And the crowd does nothing.
Right.
And so, the MC, leading the board meeting, okay, red wolves.
One for red wolves, okay.
Anyone? Oh, okay, well, we'll put that down for consideration. And, of course, when the ballot comes out between what name is going to be the next one, it's going to be Riverhawks or Mustangs, right? Like, sorry, Red Wolves guy, it ain't happening.
Right, yeah. Yeah, Morris Mustangs, that's so hard.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think we need to submit a vote on behalf of Midsouth Memories and just call the Morris school district and tell them that this is the name.
Right, yeah.
If they go Riverhawks, they will deal with so many transfers out of that school because no one wants to be called a Riverhawk.
Right.
Like, what's your football team? It's the legendary Morris Riverhawks.
I was in my high school. I went to Iroquois High School in Louisville, Kentucky, and I believe it was the Indians early on, and then they switched it to Raiders. So we were the Raiders, which I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's better. What are we rating here?
My elementary school was the Olsen Vikings until I think I was in 5th grade, and nope, parents said it's too violent to be the Vikings.
Right.
So they go through the process. The name is changed to the Orcas, and so even 5th grade me, I'm like, okay, so we go from something called the Olsen Vikings to the Olsen Killer Whales.
Right. Yeah. You know how many people the killer whales
is a killer whale? Come on, think about it, guys. Think about it. So I don't know. It's a sensitive subject for me. I never wanted to be an orca, and I graduated elementary school right before they became the orcas. So I will always be a Viking at heart.
Yeah. Right. You got that Viking blood in you.
I got the Viking blood. That's right.
The next match, we got Chucky Smooth and Dysfunction. They go 8-18. I say Chucky looks peak 97 HBK during his entrance here. And if you get that, you get that. If you don't, all right. They kind of switch roles because at the time, Chucky was a babyface and Dysfunction was a heel. But with the non-PG chants towards Chucky and stuff like that, Dysfunction is de facto babyface. I was actually good friends with Dysfunction. Kurt Kruger at this time actually helped him build his first website and acted like a webmaster on it for a little bit until he got the gist of how to run it. The 69 pin from Chucky gets the response he was looking for. Dysfunction gets stuck in the ropes after a trio wheel Bronco Buster. Chucky does a crazy skull-crushing finale off the ropes, like acid drop style.
Yeah.
And then the finish is a wrist-only class pedigree, which Chucky would usually do with a face bump. But at the last second, Dysfunction flips, which could have been death, but it ends up as like a weird hook for a tiger bomb.
Right. Yep. And that's why we got the commentator calling the action here, because I had no idea what to call that. I was like, oh, that was cool. Almost killed him. Could have killed him.
Right.
But
yeah,
it would be a Midsouth Memories episode without a near death, so it seemed good.
Yeah, and I forgot this match happened. I forgot everything about the show. I haven't seen it in however many years, probably 20 years for me. But when he grabbed him, I was used to Chucky doing I think he called it like the implant buster or something like that, something, risque, but, he grabbed he would grab the wrist instead of double underhooking the arms. So, people would just fall to their face. And when I saw Dysfunction kick that flip, I was like, oh God, he's about to die.
Uh-oh.
It was just perfect like two ships passing in the fucking
yeah
in the sea.
Yeah, it was an interesting match. There was a lot of innovative moves. I think Chucky and Dysfunction, they were both super young, and they had that like exuberance and willingness to try new shit. And I thought a lot of it came off pretty well, considering how badly it could have gone. Chucky also got a ton of heat, like we said, a lot of inappropriate chants. Literally my first note, Nick, on this match is Chucky gyrating in front of babies, flicking tongue at fans, and swallowing Tic Tacs.
Yeah, he ate a shit ton of Tic Tacs during his entrance. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was good. The fans got into it a little bit too much. He did a little running man in the ring. And like Chucky, I think a lot of it is character, but a lot of it's delivery too. Is he would get huge heat for the simplest things.
Yep.
The simplest things. The one little gyration in front of somebody.
Yeah, he committed to, even though he was supposed to be a babyface, he committed. He's like, okay. And props to both of these guys for being able to flip it like that. Nowadays, I'm not sure if, younger wrestlers now would be able to, on a dime like that, change it up and switch roles. Next up,
it's one of those things in wrestling that's pretty amazing is, think of a guy like Goldust or a guy like Effie. The same things that you hate Chucky Smooth for, these guys did, and it's what made them fan favorites.
Right, absolutely.
The exact same things. It's crazy. Like what a world wrestling is where you could do the same exact mannerisms and outrage people that you could to get them to cheer you. It's wild.
Right. Next up, we have Vic Capri with sensational Sherri Martel versus Chris Hero with Naughty and Nice. Sherri Martel has on the HBK WrestleMania outfit here. I'm very upset that I was in the presence of Sherri Martel multiple times and I never got a picture with her. I've gone on to say, after Bobby Heenan, she's probably my favorite all-rounder in wrestling. She can just do it all, cut promos, have matches, valet, do whatever you needed to do. I feel like Sherri Martel could do that. So behind Bobby Heenan, she goes for me, just in favorite managers, favorite. I don't even know what you would call that, favorite. Not just wrestlers, just an absolute legend. This is the only supporting cast. There you go. The only time she managed Vic Capri here. The only time.
Yeah, probably a good call. I mean, nothing against Vic Capri, but right. It was clunky.
During the entrance, I got to see some friends like Shotgun Yawn, who still goes to shows nowadays. I shouted him out on GCW commentary recently in St. Louis at Pop's nightclub. IWA Tony Farinella, Joe McKee, who has been taking pictures of me for 20 years at this point, 21 years at this point. No,
wrestling pictures.
Yes, yes. 23 years at this point. God bless. I'm
old.
I'm so old. The first time she took a picture of me was the first time I met Harley Race, which was like in December of 2001. God bless.
I remember that picture. I've seen that picture.
Yes, it's a classic one. Super chubby, husky jeans, Nick Maniwa with bangs, meeting the greatest wrestler on God's green earth. Milwaukee Troy also in the crowd during this Chris Hero entrance. This is blue Superman shirt with the white trip pants era for Chris Hero. A lot of people going back. It
was like the precursor to the official wrestling gear version of that.
Yes. A lot of people going back and reading stuff on like ChicagoWrestling.com and various other, live journal entries and whatever, called this a not so great match between two great pro wrestlers, and they just didn't really have any chemistry.
I think that's accurate.
There was like multiple times where like Hero like tries to like pick Vic up, and I don't know if Vic doesn't know what he's doing or what, and then Vic tries his damnedest to do a muscle buster on Hero, and just like the positioning is all wrong. At multiple points in this match, Sherri Martel beats the shit out of Nadia Nice. Just really mollywops the shit out of her. Vic wins this match with a super sliced bread from the top, but the finish is weird. It looks like it's going to be a non-finish, and like talking about it, like we wasn't sure if maybe Nadia was supposed to like pull the feet to lead to something, or she like missed the cue, so then Sherri pulled the feet even though her guy was spinning, and the girls are brawling around again, and then John Howard, the referee, just tells Jim like, "Yeah, Vic Capri won," and we were like, "Oh, okay, right on."
It was like rewind about 30 seconds, and that was the finish.
Right. Any comments on this match?
Yeah.
This match went 21 minutes 19 seconds.
Yeah, it went how long?
21 minutes 19 seconds.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, sorry. It's a long one, and like you said, it didn't really click. I mean, Hero, as he always does, connected with the fans, came out, shook every single fan's hand. That was cool. Vic Capri walked around, and fans talked all kinds of shit about his height, so that was, I think the fan interaction was the best part of the match. The match itself was a little bit clunky. Hero, I mean, you could see how good he was, and you could tell that he is so much better than what's happening right now. Like, something about it, you could see greatness there, but something about it just didn't connect. Like you said, the finish was whack. Like you said, Vic hit the top rope, sliced bread. Apparently, I think he got the 3 count there. I think that's what they awarded it to. Nadia pulled out the ref, but apparently she did so too late, but we didn't find that out until like a minute and a half later.
Did Nadia pull out the ref?
I think Nadia pulled out the ref first, and then Sherri hit her and the ref.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then, ultimately it's like, nope, all that was for nothing because the 3 count happened before anybody got pulled out. All right, cool, we'll take it, whatever. And like, no one even cared.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, well, okay.
The funniest part for me about that finish though is like, and we talked about it before. Some of these old shows, the video and audio quality excellent. This is one of those. You could literally hear a fan say, "What the hell just happened?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know what happened."
Yeah, I
don't know either. I'm listening to the house, and I can't tell what happened either.
Another funny thing is like Sherri is like trying to like tell Vic to like, raise your face up, like celebrate that you won, and Vic is like, nah, I don't think I want to.
What the fuck? And that's the thing, like, she tried her damnedest, and I think part of her thing was just like to divert people's attention from what was happening to make something different happen. Like, they fucked up the finish, and then she just like pulls out Nadia, clobbers her, pulls out a ref, clobbers him, walks around a little bit, and people are just like, all right, cool, no worries. Right. Like, there's no concern about what's happening because she kind of flipped the script that quick. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so crazy. Next up, we have Nate Webb, Spider Nate Webb, taking on Todd Morton. The biggest little man and the hottest sports entertainment commodity standing under 6 foot tall, Todd Morton. Todd cuts an anti-Morris promo.
The promo is brutal.
Yeah, Jim fed him all this, venom and material here. He just, he's talking about.
It's so funny.
If you knew the hate that Morris had for Joliet Catholic and their fans, and I got to go to like, I think one of the finals or one of the playoff games or something, and if you're on that Morris side, you were a Redskin for that game, and
that's
people were
the funniest part is the level of specificity in his promo is so far-fetched.
He's not reading this off of paper or whatever. This is just when Jim fed him 5 minutes, during the beginning of or before the show or something, and he remembered it, and he knew everything, and he's going into exact detail. Remember how he wasn't in bounds? Ha ha ha! It just the craziest.
Yeah, the of detail is something that Todd Morton would never know about any of this, even if it was his favorite sports team ever. Like, there's no way. And as a fan watching it, like, I know that. And that's what makes it even funnier, is that you know for a fact that he was fed this shit, but the crowd is such a naive audience that they're like, oh, this motherfucker. And I'm just dying. Like, there's no way. He drops names of NFL players that made it to the league from the opposing team. Like, it's so fucking funny. And as a sports guy, as a football guy, he name drops Mike Allstott, who's a guy who played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in the day, and he's a guy that I enjoyed watching. Anyways, to drop that in there and be like, yeah, this motherfucker made it from the other school. Who's made it from your school? Not a damn person. And like, the funny thing is, like, the promo starts as like, oh, you guys were runner-up to the.
So genuine. It's so nice. And then he turns it off.
And then he's like, that means you're the first losers. And then that from there, it's all downhill. And he gets some fucking heat. It's great. It's so funny. So funny.
He starts jaw-jacking with the superfan booster in the front row. It's not the football coach. It's just one of the superfans who he would give money and really supported the team. And
that was a great plant. Assuming he was a plant, that was perfect. Like, he was the entire crowd in that one body. And like, as a fan, you're kind of like, oh, I hope this guy fucking slaps him, or I hope he does something. As someone who knows a little bit about wrestling, you're like, I hope he doesn't. But as a fan, you're like, oh, I want this guy to nail him.
Yeah, I mean, Todd uses all of his Memphis tactics here with stalling. They go 5 minutes for the time cue, and they've done one schoolboy. That's it. The rest, there's the fans start throwing garbage at Todd, and Fannin grabs the microphone, and he's like, all right, stop throwing garbage, yada, yada, yada. And then they continue to throw garbage, and he's like, all right, you guys, like, they're going to shut the show down if you keep throwing garbage. Anyway, Todd Morton is such a small target. The chance that you'll hit him, the chance that you will hit him and not someone, an innocent party is, and I fucking died laughing during that.
That's funny too.
And Todd reacts to it. He's like, oh, you son of a bitch.
He's encouraging. He's like, the midget in the ring. And then he goes into specific detail. Fans, please stop throwing popcorn. Right. Please stop throwing soda cans. Please stop throwing this. Like, don't get any ideas from what I'm telling you, but don't throw any popcorn or soda or. It's great. They played off each other really well, I thought.
Yeah, I think originally for this match, Bull Payne and Jim wanted it to be Bull in this spot, and it was a period where Bull and Ian were not getting along, despite working for Bull, working for Ian every week. So Todd was put in this spot. Nate misses a Phoenix Splash, which I forgot was in his arsenal. Todd hits a Gigatonic, which surprised me. And then the Superfan jumps the rail going after Todd. He trips Todd, hits Todd with a punch to lead to a Nate Webb Schoolboy super basic match. And this whole match is basically to get that finish pop. And it worked extremely well. The fans lost their minds for this. And then Todd cuts another promo to bury them again on his way out of the ring.
Yeah, it was great. For me, I mean, the obvious Rey and Eddie stuff is the highlight of the show, but for me, this was like the epitome of what this match was supposed to be, and it got fans so into it, and I think it got them into the rest of the entire show.
Yeah, it definitely helped.
Todd put in work. Todd put in work on the mic, but he also put in work in the ring. Like, he had some strong moves. He hit a super strong swinging neck breaker. He hit a brutal brain buster. Nate, I think, is pretty green at this point, but it's like 4 years, something like that.
Yeah, a couple years in, yeah.
Looks super young. And like you said, Phoenix Splash in 2022 2002. There we go.
There you
20
go.
Years ago. Jesus. Yeah, at the time, that's pretty remarkable. Nate's, when he comes out, his entrance is a shorter version of what we all know it to be now. Same song, but a good 4 minutes shorter, which was a little bit of a disappointment because I love Nate. But
yeah, he was
different
not
look
going
too. Got the short hair, It was good, and I thought Nate was the right person to work Todd in this match.
Yep, I agree totally.
I helped him. Fans were into it. He was, 2002. He looked the part. He had the Hardy Boys kind of like mesh shirt and baggy pants deal, and I felt like the fans could relate with that and made them hate Todd even more because he's kind of the traditional Memphis asshole, and Nate was the opposite of that. So, good
right.
work.
Yeah, I agree. Todd Morton's a great professional wrestler. This IWA fan and I guess independent wrestling fan, Roderick on Twitter will post like whole shows with the recaps of each match. So it'll be like a 2-minute recap of each match. And he just posted a great one with Todd Morton and JC Bailey from like May of 2003, I think it is. And it's just excellent pro wrestling. I retweeted it at like 2 a.m. once because I was scrolling and saw it and was just like, how great is Todd Morton? And, I got to see him a few months ago at Grindhouse and, just a great pro wrestler. So far in this.
Yeah, he gets zero love.
Yeah, no love here this evening. So far in this show, Danny Dominion, Adara James, Billy Joe Eaton, and Carmine are no longer active in pro wrestling. Chucky Smooth is a manager now for AAW. Dysfunction promotes Insane Championship Wrestling out of Milwaukee. I don't know how active he is in the ring anymore. Vic Caprice still wrestling. Unfortunately, sensational Sherri Martel no longer with us. Chris Hero still wrestling for West Coast Pro. Chris Hero's pro wrestling mixtape coming in April in California. It's going to be super sick. Bunch of awesome people announced for that already. Nadia Nice no longer in pro wrestling. Nate Webb still at it. Just celebrated 25 years of Nate Webb in Indianapolis a few weeks ago. Todd Morton no longer active in wrestling. And then we come to this next match, Brad Bradley versus Eric Priest. To give the time for Todd and Nate Webb, they went about 11 minutes, 10:59 for that match, and they kept the action going that whole time. Like there was no lull, there was no, nobody making noise. Like they had that crowd that entire time.
Yep.
And any other comments for Nate Webb and Todd Morton?
Said, Jim made the 5-minute announcement before they had even touched, or right around the time they first touched, and to know that it went 11 minutes total, that gives them 6 minutes to work, and they put in work those 6 minutes, and I thought it was perfect.
Speaking of 6 minutes, this next match goes 6:43. We got the Super Brat, Brad Bradley, taking on the underwear model Eric Priest. Eric Priest and Brad Bradley were both Steel Domain trained, so that's why they are on this show.
Yep, that's
fine. Brad had worked a little bit for us in Charlestown in late 2001. Him and Ian had a feud in Milwaukee for Carmine at Mid-American Wrestling, and Ian took a liking to him. Eric Priest was not working for us at that time, but he would later go on in the 2004-2006 era. Eric Priest would work for us, sometimes tagging with Chandler McClure as Team Underground. Brad worked 2001 to 2005 regularly for us. Former IWA Tag Team Champion with Ryan Boz and Trick Davis in a Freebirds type situation. Brad Bradley still at it today at the NWA promotion nowadays as Jay Bradley.
He's been everywhere.
Yeah, multiple tours of Japan. He had a little stint in WWE. He had a little stint in WWE Developmental. He had a stint in TNA. He's done a lot. We saw him last in IWA in a match against Larry D in February of, I want to say 2018, 2019. This is two young wrestlers at this time. Not a lot to this match. I don't know if this match is necessary, but it also didn't offend me that it happened on the show.
Didn't offend me either, yeah. Right.
The
Brad's a huge guy. Priest is a young guy. They did what they do in, about a 5-minute match, 6-minute match.
Right. Brad hits a buckle bomb, which surprised me because, you didn't see those a bunch in 2002. And then there's like a neckbreaker finish for the pin for Eric Priest to go over. And it almost seems like a fast count from the referee. I don't know if the referee's like, let's get these fucking guys out of here.
Get them out.
You know what I mean?
It was immediately after like the 5-minute announcement. And then neckbreaker finish, go home.
Right, yeah.
Not that it was bad. It wasn't a bad match. It was just, like you said, maybe not needed.
Yeah, just not needed, or we talked last night about maybe rebooking some stuff, and if it was me, I would have maybe done Brad and Eric Priest as a tag, losing to Ian and Axel instead of putting Barbara in the main event on a school fundraiser. But I digress.
Yep.
Next up, we have Dino Bambino against Colt Cabana. Dino Bambino at this time was like Mid-American Wrestling's like Sabu. He was a high flyer, a unique style. He used tables often. We had him a few times in IWA. We actually did Dino and Sabu in, I want to say, 2000. So he had been around for quite a while. No longer in pro wrestling is Dino Bambino. And also Eric Priest, I don't believe, is a active competitor any longer either. From the last match. Obviously, Colt Cabana still an active competitor. There's a lot of good in this, but there's also a lot of like weird, clunky stuff in this. Like there's a back suplex out of the ring that Dino's supposed to land on the apron, but he falls and then he has to get up to eat a clothesline and then takes another nasty fall into the guardrail. After that, and this is like one of the, especially for this era, one of the only shows we've ever had guardrails. So a lot of people were like confused and like the regular IWA fans were kind of annoyed at the guardrails. I know RIP Big Daddy Vic Von Erich had some comments about the guardrails and stuff of that nature in his I don't even think it was live journal. I think he just had like a free web space website, and he had a little blog section on that, and he was like, man, I ain't down with these guardrails. But
I thought it was the right call given the environment.
Yeah, you definitely need guardrails, especially with all those crazy fans. There's a lot of stalling after that, and then Dino like walks around the ring like 2 times to like get some chairs, and they do some fun spots with the chairs, some stuff I haven't seen before or since. Actually, sent it to a wrestler friend of mine and was like, hey, look at this chair stuff, man. You should do that. So
right, yeah. I had that in my notes too. Cool stuff with chairs.
you might see it on a future GCW show or something.
One of them was they had set up, I think, 2 chairs in the middle of the ring, and they kind of both springboarded off the chairs and hit a double crossbody on each other, which I don't know if I've ever seen, or if I have, it's not something you see every day. Right.
At one point, Cabana gets hung up in the ropes, and instead of just like hanging there, he looks like he's actively trying to like get out or trying to do something, waiting for this leg drop. Little things like that you don't see very often. Sometimes I hate to be like an old man yells at clouds, but like nowadays kids just hang there until their guy hits them, or
Yeah, we had some of that too.
Yeah.
Wait till the main.
Dino hits a shooting star press from the top rope to the floor through a table after falling twice.
It took a while to set up.
and then he finally hit it. And watching this, it gave me flashbacks to the Merrick Brave incident, because Merrick Brave fell like 2 times before he finally rushed to hit that shooting star press, and he Merrick Braved himself. So I'm just happy that Dino did not Merrick Brave himself.
He rushed that last one too.
Yeah.
He jumped up there. He was wobbly and he took off. And
still
I didn't realize what it was going to be. I thought it was, just going to be some kind of a splash. But he hit the shooting star press, and it was surprisingly perfect-ish.
Yeah. He he comes up selling his knee, and I don't know if that's a real injury or it was part of the match because Cabana instantly starts like working over his knee. So I'm gonna assume it was a planned spot. But let me see. Oh, Dino Bambino. I was like, oh, Dino Bambino stopped wrestling in 2005, and then he has results for 2013. He did like, oh, he did. Okay, I see. He did a big ass 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 10-man tag in May of 2013, and then him and Dysfunction had a singles match which ended in a no contest, and then they came back with a 6-man tag with on opposite sides. So Dino Bambino no longer active in wrestling. You know, Dino at one point tells the referee like, "Don't call it." So I have to assume the knee injury was a work. Because Cabana really works over this leg. He hits a crazy dragon screw, a super fisherman buster, and then a condo clutch to put Dino away, which is like a reverse Texas Cloverleaf type thing. Any other comments for Dino Bambino and classic Colt Cabana?
It was a lot of Dino getting his stuff in. He hit a Poison Rana, which in 2002, again, is kind of before its time. Just did a bunch of crazy stuff, a lot of spots, which, it was cool. The shooting star press made me a little afraid. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. I had, it was a good match that you probably won't remember, but enjoyed watching. It wasn't the most technical thing. Colt looked pretty good, I thought, for being pretty young. And like back in his day, he was a super skilled wrestler, and the stuff that he did was believable. I think a lot of that is watered down now with the comedy, which I think is a polarizing topic for wrestling fans. I personally enjoy it. A lot of people don't. They think it kind of makes a mockery of things. But yeah, I mean, like the early days of Colt showed that he could hit hard and, do those impactful moves. So I wasn't mad at it. The referee, who I have no idea who it is, you would know better than I would, had, I'm a shoe guy, so I noticed his shoes. His shoes are some Reebok Frank Thomas Big Hurt sneakers. So shout out to the Big Hurt Frank Thomas, who is a baseball player, and now he's on like dick pill commercials, I think.
Is he on? And yeah, you said it for me. I didn't have to.
Yeah, he's on the dick pill commercials with Doug Flutie, who's a former football player. So Frank Thomas, shout out to you and your cool sneakers made by Reebok, and were retroed in I think 2013 or something. So anyways, sorry to go off on a tangent, but I noticed the shoes, and they're kind of striped, so it matches the shirt. Yeah. Good looking shoes.
Yes.
I got to get me some.
Referee Scotty DeMarc that wrestled or that refereed for Carmine DeSpirito, and he always had some nice kicks on.
Shout out to you, good sir. I liked it.
Up next, we have the IWA Midsouth Light Heavyweight title on the line. Ace Steel as the champion, taking on Rey Mysterio Jr. This is a 15-minute time limit draw. And even though it is a title match, no title is to be seen. We do not have an IWA Light Heavyweight title at this time. It goes to a time limit draw because, obviously we're not going to put the belt on Rey Mysterio Jr. because he's never coming back. So you got to do a time limit draw. Ian always thought very highly of Ace Steel and thought highly of his work. I thought this was a great match. I did read some reviews that said it seemed like Rey didn't trust Ace fully, so they didn't do a lot of stuff. But I think what they did was more than enough to have a standard good match. What do you think, Mike?
I agree. I think they had a good match. I don't think anything was missing. They didn't need to do any. I can't finger point a specific spot that I wanted to see.
Right.
And, at this point, 2002, Rey's about to go into his WWE run. I don't know what his health is like at the time, but he just came off the WCW sit-in, and I think maybe trying to figure out what his style is following that. He's not really the the super traditional lucha flippy guy anymore, and I think he's transitioning kind of into a different style. So it didn't bother me at all. Ace Steel is awesome. He's a great heel, and I think for me, he's a guy that's not afraid to be a complete goofball jackass.
Yep.
And also kind of a badass. And like his facials, I think a lot of young wrestlers could learn from now. Like a fan will say something stupid to him, and he like puffs out his cheeks and gets bug-eyed and stomps around, and like it makes it so believable. It's fucking ridiculous. It's like cartoon, like Looney Tune type shit, but it's so effective. And like in indie wrestling, that's great. Nobody does that. But in like larger wrestling, nobody still does. And I think that could get, a lot of people over huge just thinking about stuff like that. And I think he definitely does. Like his reactions to fan comments or shit that the opponent does, like comments that Rey makes, it's fucking funny. And it makes you like, yeah, this guy, like he's the heel. That was really good. And pretty much, like his interactions with people, I think, are at a higher level than most indie talent. There's, like you said, they had to go to a time limit. What I noticed is that, like, at the 12-minute mark, Jim made an announcement, and like 12 minutes is kind of a weird thing. So I'm like, all right, this is going to come down to the last second, whether it's going to be a draw, whether it's going to be a quick roll up. So 12-minute announcement, and then you get like, counting down from 13-minute, 30-second, yada yada yada. Like it kind of sets it up for you. Ace, they're both, I think, on the top rope or something. The finish is kind of weird. Like you can see it not really stalling, but just waiting for those last couple seconds to make the final call. Yep. Rey hits like a baseball slide to the groin right before that. It's pretty funny, which sets up the Bronco Buster, which I didn't really forget that he did, but that was like a staple for him back in those like Filthy Animal days, was hitting that Bronco Buster. He never really did that after, did he?
Yeah, Is that
a WWE thing, maybe?
He definitely did it more in WCW as like a Filthy Animal, because I think when he went to WWE, X-Pac was still there, or at least there was some crossover, so he couldn't. But then once X-Pac left, he started doing it more.
Did he bring it back?
I think he brought it back. I agree totally about Ace Steel, and just Chris Candido once said, like, it's pro wrestling. It's been ridiculous since day one. If you can look like a jackass and it's not going to hurt you, even if you're like the most badass motherfucker there is. You're a heel. You can look like an idiot. That's what you're there for.
Personally, I'd much rather have the goofy jackass heel than the cowardly heel.
Right.
Like go around, stomp around, look like a dumbass, get mad about the stupidest thing, have your butt crack hanging out, that kind of stuff. I'm cool with that. Candido is perfect at that. Perfect example, Nick. These other, like, I don't know if it's a generational thing or what, but nowadays every single heel is a coward. He's not a goofball. He's not a jackass. You can't, I don't know. It's a different world now. The funny part, and it's not
to cut you off, but the thing about wrestling nowadays is like the fans' attention span is so short that they're not going to remember you being a jackass. Yes. The next time you're in a big money match, you're wrestling Minoru Suzuki, they're not going to remember that you begged off and you grabbed tights and you raked eyes and, did all this heel shit. You know what I mean? They're going to, Suzuki and him are going to kill it, whatever. But I digress. Go ahead.
And I mean, like, look at a guy like Big Show, right? Who flipped every single match he had. And nobody even, I mean, it's a running joke now, but no one at the time cared. That just shows you the attention span of the fans. Like, I'm not disparaging anyone, not disparaging any fans, but the fact is, you can do shit and get away with it and come back, in a very short period of time with something total opposite, and nobody cares. Yep. After the match,
go ahead.
It gets a little funny. Rey wants 5 more minutes, or the fans want 5 more minutes. Rey says, "No, I could beat you in 2 minutes." So, Ace is like, "Oh, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll give you 2 more minutes. Yeah, we'll give you 2 more minutes when you sign for another title shot, jackass." And then just kind of shuts it down. And the fans are left with their stuff in their hands. And Ace just kind of stomps out of there. And he's like, "Yeah, fuck you guys."
Right. Did not give a damn. As Rey leaves the ring, ring, Eddie Guerrero enters the ringside area and like shoulder checks him, and then just starts whooping his ass.
So
He beats the shit.
Let me ask you, Nick.
Yes.
I don't know if it's just me, but I felt a little bit. So I like the transition. Transition's cool. It made a little bit of sense. But I felt like something was taken from me by not having like the Eddie entrance.
Right. I can see that. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't know if this was Ian's way of potentially maybe setting up an Eddie versus Rey match. I never heard that back then.
Yeah.
It could have been. I believe at Ring of Honor he's smooth.
It's not to say that Eddie's entrance is anything remarkable, but
Right.
I feel like that would have been part of the experience of seeing Eddie live, is having him come out with the fucking, mean mugging people with the belt over his shoulder. I mean, he did a little bit of that just on the way.
Yep.
But I feel like it would have put more of the spotlight on that moment with Eddie, and maybe even Punk, like he would have gotten his entrance, and whether he hightailed it into the ring or whatever. I don't know. It wasn't bad. I liked the setup. The setup made sense, and it's not something that I dislike. But I felt like having Eddie make a formal entrance would have added to that moment.
I think part of the reason Ian did it this way is because, Hero and Punk had that tables and ladders match in February of this year, the last House of Hardcore show. And he was kind of a heel, and then that match turned him babyface. So he was kind of still newly babyface. So I think Ian wanted to make him, the absolute babyface in this match in the Chicagoland area. So that's why he did it that way instead of just doing traditional entrances. Because, he had just won the belt from Hero in February and then lost it to Eddie the night before. And you actually see a 13-year-old Nick Maniwa walk in the background during the opening of this match, just quickly walk across the back of the audience there.
We talked about this match a little bit, Nick. There's not much to the match that you wouldn't expect of an Eddie Guerrero and CM Punk match. So, like, getting into the technicality of the play-by-play of the match, I don't think there's even benefit in that, and I think that's something that you as a commentator would agree to. Right. But just the moment of the match is the story itself.
Right, and Punk stated like later on that, he thought he was good until he was in the ring with Eddie Guerrero. And what a statement that is, because Punk is, a few years in, 2 years in at this point, top guy at IWA, top guy at MAW, running Chicago essentially. And then, you get to be in the ring with someone like Eddie Guerrero, and you're like, well, I ain't shit. Wow. I ain't never done shit. I ain't never going to do shit. Thinking at that point. But, yeah, this match went 16:02. Dave Prazak is with CM Punk, and CM Punk wins the title back from Eddie Guerrero. There's some chicanery with Rey Mysterio, right, for this one? I think. And
Eddie comes in with a chair. Rey, I think, makes the save, and then Punk hits like that reverse DDT on the chair and gets the 3 count.
Oh, yeah.
Rey gets his revenge a little bit for, whooping his ass.
Right. Yeah, I forgot.
It's cool like too. Nick, I don't know if we've talked about this element of booking indie wrestling, is how do you book a big name like Eddie Guerrero and have him work as a heel?
Right.
Because we know that folks are there to see Eddie Guerrero, right? They're here to see Rey too. They're here to see IWA, whatever. But they're there to see Eddie. And, is part of that experience of seeing Eddie booing him? Is part of that experience cheering him because you're excited to see him? I've always felt like, personally with my interactions with indie wrestling, I don't know how familiar our audience is with a team called the Ballard Brothers. I know you know a little bit about them. Yep. They're one of my favorite indie teams. They're a California-based team. Kind of Canadian, maybe? I don't know. I don't know if they're shoot Canadian. Twin brothers, ugly, white, long hair, hockey jerseys at one time. And, I've always been a fan of them. They're great guys, but they're also fun workers, too. And part of the experience of enjoying them is being able to boo them. Taking that moment, enjoying the heel dickish things that wrestlers do and booing them. Like, that's the experience. So I feel like a lot of that is lost in indie wrestling because fans are so excited to see a guy like Eddie Guerrero. We're all excited to see Eddie Guerrero. But doesn't mean we got to cheer him. We boo him. That's the fun part.
Right, and he was kind of a tweener in indie the night before. You know, he still had that Eddie Guerrero famous snarl on his face, and obviously Rey was a big baby face, and then Punk was kind of also a tweener. So, yeah, and props to Eddie for not being like, no, man, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to cut all my merch money or whatever. He probably still made merch money and still got to be a heel. And that just shows you how great Eddie Guerrero truly is. And then, I said that went 16:02. After that, we got our big main event, a triple threat for the IWA tag team titles, which I don't believe there's tag team titles at this point either. The team of Cashflow and Corbin Robinson versus Mean and Hard versus the Bad Breed of Ian and Axel Rotten. Cage Match has this as the titles are vacant, but I believe Mitch and Roland are the tag team champions.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell from the lack of titles, but for some reason, Mean and Hard take 90 seconds to come out. I don't know what that was about. But I was like, what? Because usually, they come out and they're, singing along to their music and tagging hands and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Start.
Anyone has more fun than Mitch and Roland.
Right.
Whether it's entrances, whether it's gear, whether it's match itself.
Yeah.
You just watch those guys and you can tell they're having fun.
Right, totally. They had just newly, I think in January of this year, been reformed as Mean and Hard. The MMPs of Me, Mitch Page, and Madman Pondo had disbanded, and then Mitch and Roland were feuding for a little bit, and then they finally joined forces to enter the tag ranks once again. Their original run of Mean and Hard was like in 98, 99, and Jim Fannin was managing them during that time. Hot start with all the teams going at it, tornado tag style. Tables surround the ring. Bad Breed come out with the barbed wire bat and chair. Mean and Hard come out with Hollywood. Hollywood was a valet of Adrian Serrano. And the IWA management and fans took a liking to Hollywood. Infamously known for being one of the competitors in the bubble bath match. So, she was around, and they put, while Mean and Hard were baby faces, they put Hollywood with them. With them. There's almost like a stunned silence as the weapons are being brought out. And the fans are like, what are we seeing? Like, what is happening? Like, what is this?
Or what is about to happen?
And then at one point you see Jim Fannin inside the rail in a chair just looking very upset, like, well, there goes this. We're never coming back here again.
Oh, my God.
Crazy stuff in this one. Everybody's bleeding. Brent Blades, the referee, gets awesome bombed over the top rope and bounces off of a table.
Oh my God! Yep, he does.
Just totally dies. Hollywood jumps in the ring, eats a pile driver. She's still new to wrestling at this point, so she doesn't know to sell it like death, and is just immediately up rolling around
and then walking around outside.
Yeah, just holding her neck. Scott DeMarc eats a chair shot from Axel. Brent. You think, okay, he suffered his worst fate. Well, you thought wrong, pal, because Axel checks on him, and then it's like, all right, pal, take his powerbomb through his table. And he eats the powerbomb. Mitch goes through a table at one point, and then Axel hits a barbed wire bat assisted leg drop to win the match. Ian and Axel are the IWA Tag Team Champions. Ian cuts a rah-rah promo afterwards, and then we would not run another show in Morris, Illinois until October of 2005.
Yeah, sounds about right. That's the thing, too, is in his post-match promo, the person that Ian puts over the hardest is the superintendent of schools.
Right.
You're holding a barbed wire bat. Everyone, the 6 people in the match are bleeding all around you. And hey, how about that superintendent?
Right.
True Ian fashion. I felt like it was just so out of touch with the moment. It fucking killed me. Like, we're all bleeding. Fans are like, what the fuck? The kids probably have already run out the building. And, oh, thanks, superintendent, for letting us do this. Like, what the fuck? The ref spot for me felt like the wrestling equivalent of Final Destination.
Right.
So, like, he pulls the chair from Ian. Ian super bombs him out the ring. Table doesn't break. However, fate has already decided that he will go through that table no matter what. So, you know, like you said, Axel goes, checks on him. He's like, fuck it. You're all right. Let me slam you through this table. And he goes through it hard and pieces kind of fly everywhere. It's rough.
Axel powerbombed him super hard, like to assure that this table's going to break this time.
Yep. And it broke like a son of a bitch. The other ref takes that chair shot from Axel, and it was like peak Balls Mahoney, Axel era, like ECW chair shot unprotected to the head. And the ref kind of bent over a little bit, so it caught him on like the top and back of the head. It was nasty. Definitely the hardest spots of the match were the 3, I guess, ref spots.
Right.
Corp walks Ian over to the corner where the barbed wire bat is, and Ian's just going to town on his forehead. And I'm like, oh no, this is no good. Like, if I'm seeing this, there's no way that the fans in attendance and the principal and that they're not seeing this dude just carve himself up. And God bless your heart, Ian. You see it in every Ian match probably, but he just gives no fucks.
Right. The return show for Morris, Illinois did not happen at this same high school gym. It happened at the middle school gym, which featured a rematch of Samoa Joe versus Necro Butcher. So we might eventually do that show. It's a super show as well, a lot more super than this one.
I remember that one. Yep, I remember that one. And it's funny, they go from high school to middle school. Right. And if you didn't learn the first time.
And it's not attended to well, so Jim Vanna thinks that people heard that. Jim Vanna did not have kind words to say about this show. He thought it was a lackluster show. He thought, the undercard sucked, and the main matches were the best of the show. And he was like, "No wonder we didn't get invited back. The show fucking sucked." And I was like, "Oh, that's a little strong take, but
I think there's probably personal feelings involved in that, judging by what we know about the situation now."
Definitely.
But hey, different things, whatever. I thought it was a cool show. I thought I had a little bit of everything.
I did not think it was as bad as Jim and Rich Wayne thought on their podcast years ago. Definitely some stuff that was not needed. Definitely some stuff that could have been tightened up a little bit. But if you've never seen Morris Mayhem, it is available on IWTV.
I do got a question, too, in the pipeline. Okay. When the moment is right.
The note for the last show, the Heartbreak show that we did, the Chris Hero gear is Bizarro Superman inspired. So that's why it's that weird, like, maroon and purple and yellow. So I had someone...
The backwards logo, right? That's that one?
The backwards logo, yeah. I had someone ask about that, so...
That's a deep cut.
Right. I wanted to give that. If the action looks like it's coming your way counter did not happen because we had guardrails. The best theme of the show, in my opinion, probably Rey Mysterio coming out to California Love.
Yes, that's me too.
Because we had no other like, we didn't have Rey Mysterio WCW music. We didn't have the Filthy Animals track. So
I feel like it fit in a California guy. So
yeah, totally.
Extra love.
I think my buddy Brian Red was like, I have Tupac, and he was like, all right, we'll do that. So
I thought about that too, honestly, Nick. With the Eddie entrance, was it because there was no theme music?
Right, because I was gonna mention, like, during the when we were talking about the match, he came out to Smooth by Santana and Rob Thomas for Ring of Honor, but I believe the night before he came out to the Latino Heat music, but I don't know if we had that on a CD or if because we used a different music person on those Indianapolis shows sometimes. So I don't know if they had it, and
wouldn't that be a funny rationale for doing that?
Yeah.
Like, we don't
have your
fit,
music,
so
pal. Yeah.
He either goes in with no music, we give him something that doesn't fit, or he just walks out and is kind of a dick heel and has no respect for what's happening before him and waiting for his moment. So
Right.
hey, with that hindsight, I'll take it.
Yeah. Match of the night. It's probably I have MVP of the show. I'm gonna have to give it to Todd Morton just for the reaction that he got. I mean, out of the whole show, that got the most reaction from the crowd.
Yep.
So
I think Eddie got the fans there, and Todd got them invested.
Yeah. So Todd Morton would be my MVP of the show. Match of the night, probably the Eddie and Punk match, the Todd and Nate match. I didn't hate the show.
It's about what you're looking for.
Other people, yeah. Moment of the night, probably that shooting star press from the top to the floor through a table, just for something you wouldn't see on every show.
Yeah.
I think that's about it for this Morris Mayhem show. Any other closing thoughts for Morris Mayhem before we go into the question and stuff of that nature?
It was quite a show. I thought it was a nice roller coaster. It had a build. I liked the stuff that Todd did. I think added a lot. As minimal as that was, in the time of the show, I thought it added a lot. One thing that I did notice that kind of brought me back was the Smart Mark cameraman was wearing the K5 hat with the green font, the green logo. That brought me back, and that shout out to that. Just kind of nostalgic vibe. That's all I got as far as the show goes.
And you said you do have a question, right?
I do have a question. It is surprisingly relevant to the topic of Morris Mayhem. All right, let me pull this up. Okay, question is from the tramp stamp at hotmail.com.
Oh no, this might be an ex-girlfriend.
Let's see. All right. Hi guys, this is Dennis from Amarillo. My question is for Nick. Who is the biggest name that IWA has ever brought in? And I think that's kind of relevant to the Eddie Guerrero thing because he may be a candidate.
Yeah, he's definitely
a couple thoughts I have. CM Punk obviously maybe is a candidate, but he wasn't a name at the time, right? I feel like it had to be someone who's made their name prior to being there.
Right.
We've talked about Sal Sincere. We've talked about Eddie,
Tom Brandy.
Yeah, that's right.
Terry Funk probably.
Terry Funk. Yeah.
He came in the late 90s and then again in 05. So I would say Terry Funk. I believe Steve Corino was the NWA World Champion when he came in 2001. Same for Sabu when he came in 2000. So that's a pretty big deal to bring in the world champion, even if you don't, really respect the NWA or, whatever.
Did Rob Conway ever work IWA? Or was that a different show?
Rob Conway did it was like a match on an IWA co-promoted show, but I don't think he was the NWA world champion at that time. I really wanted to book Rob Conway for Evolution Pro Wrestling just to hold the NWA title, but sadly that did not happen.
I've heard that before. I've heard that people went to Rob Conway shows to get a picture with the belt.
Right.
Like not even Rob. They're like, Rob, you can just sit over there, can just hold your belt, and I'll pay you the combo money, and we'll call it a day.
Right. We brought in Harley Race in 03 as the keeper of the cage between Ian Rotten and Bull Payne. That's on YouTube. It's one of the last things I uploaded on the IWA YouTube page. So Harley Race. I'm trying to think of in 98 when Sabu first came in for us, that was like a huge deal because I think in 97 he was supposed to come in for us and he called and was like, yeah, I'm almost there, and then he never showed up. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened with that. We've had Billy Gunn, we've had Road Dogg in. Famously, we've had Dave Taylor in. Cassandro. Trying to think of We had Pentagon Jr. in against Shane Mercer during the Memphis Flea Market era when Pentagon was like starting to blow up. Yeah, I'm not sure who else.
I think Terry Funk is the answer, right?
Yeah, I think it has to be Terry Funk.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I think Terry Funk, Eddie, I think is probably top 5, right?
Yeah, definitely. When I got a picture with Terry Funk at that 05 show, Ian was like, "This is my brother-in-law. He does the music for us. He does the sound for us." And then Terry Funk was like, "And he does a damn good job at it too." And I was like, "Nobody can tell me shit." Terry Funk said I was good.
Yeah,
so
that's right. I love Terry Funk.
Yeah, he's great.
He's one of those guys that he's met millions, right? Millions of fans, but he makes every fan that he interacts with feel like they're special.
Totally. There's been, I think my good friend David Bixenspan has a story of like he got an autograph that was like, to David, stay out of jail, Terry Funk, and then saw him years later and was like, "Did you stay out of jail?" So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he's just the greatest of all time. Terry Funk is definitely my number one favorite wrestler of all time. And then,
it's funny you mentioned that because I was just looking at a book of his that he autographed for someone. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. It was like literally this morning. Oh, here we go. The inscription, it's an entire page. It says, "Hey, Sean, thank you for being a fan and thank you for being a friend and a fan through the years. I'm so glad you're taking the time to read my book. I hope you truly enjoy it. Your friend from Texas, Terry Funk." Like, how gangster is that?
Right. Such a nice man. I got to do a book report like my senior year of high school. We had to do like a book report with like a poster board and shit. And I did it on Terry Funk's book. And, surprisingly, I was the only one with a picture with the author on my poster board. So I felt very proud. Everyone else is doing these real books. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do this Terry Funk biography.
How cool is that?
Fun time. So that was the show for us for March, Morris Mayhem. So if you have any shows, suggestions for April, we do have some April-centric shows available in the IWA catalog. So probably one of those. But if you have any suggestions that are on IWTV, please let us know. Mike, what do you got going on over there?
Figure-wise, working on some orders, trying to slow down a little bit, just enjoy things a little bit more. Yeah, not too much. I think your calendar is pretty open too, or now for a few months, right, Nick? Or at least for the next month.
Yeah, I don't have anything until Unsanctioned Pro on 420 at Ace of Cups in Columbus, Ohio, and then the next day, Paulcade 421 at the Jeffersonville Arena. That show is completely stacked. We have, for the Pan-African World Diaspora Championship, Shug D defends against Hoodfoot Mo Atlas. For the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title, Kobe Carino takes on Daniel Starling. Noah Vale takes on Chase Holiday. Dmitry Alexandrov versus John Wayne Murdoch with some craziness, I'm sure. The New Era of Violence versus the Awesome Odyssey versus the Bruisers in a three-way of basically tag teams that cut their teeth at the arena. We have a Mystery Scramble. We have a MidwestTerritory.com chain #1 contender battle royal. We have Cole Radrick taking on not Dr. Death, Steve Williams in a special attraction match. In the worst wrestling match ever, Chad French takes on Ben Sheeran at Paulcade. So that is something to look forward to on 421 in Kentuckiana at the Jeffersonville Arena. And then the lineup for Unsanctioned Pro in Columbus. John Wayne Murdoch versus Akira for the UP World Hardcore title. We got Yoya challenging Charlie Tiger for the UP Heavyweight title. Kevin Blackwood versus the Big Boofa, Desmond Cole, in a singles match. These men do not exist of Annika Murphy and Victor Analog taking on the Awesome Odyssey for the UP Tag Team titles. Alex Colon versus Ron Bass Jr., Christian Robinson versus Jeffrey John, Sam Beal versus Rachel Armstrong, and I believe some stipulations will be added to those matches coming up here soon. And that is pretty much all I have for April for me, besides the big Grindhouse show at the end of the month, Rise, which features a title versus career match of Clayton Cannon putting up his Grindhouse Pro heavyweight title against the career of Berto with Hippo in the first ever Grindhouse Pro Wrestling steel cage match. So that's something very exciting for me to be able to call the first ever steel cage match in Grindhouse history. I do not have any bookings for WrestleMania weekend. I'm planning on sitting on my couch, eating a lot of good food, and watching all of the wrestling.
Most of it.
Yes, definitely most of it.
Couple things. The Berto match. Go get your Ruff.Figures.
Yes.
Big Maniwa makes a cool Berto figure. I like it.
Yes, I'm still trying to figure out how to assembly line those and make it. I have the most Phineas I Godwin figures in my house. Probably the most of anyone in the world right now. Probably more than Dennis Knight himself. I have so many. I think I have 6 Phineas Godwin figures in various forms of disassembly or no heads or whatever. And then I think I have 1 or 2 Henry Godwin bodies that I just got in a lot as well. So if you want a Berto figure, definitely hit me up. I'm still, like I said, I'm trying to figure out a way to streamline those and get those on his merch table instead of, me taking care of all the, whatever. You know what I'm saying, right?
I know what you're saying. One other figure-related item is the Ruff.Figures jerseys and the assorted paraphernalia that, we kind of got out there, and you may have seen on GCW shows with the Garbage Daddies. Cole and Alec are kind of wearing the Ruff.Figure jerseys when they tag. Looks super cool. I think it's starting to get a little bit of attention. So happy to say that they are part of the Ruff.Figures team. Reed Bentley and John Wayne Murdoch also sporting the knee sleeves occasionally. So thanks, guys. Appreciate the support. And I think it's cool to see.
Yeah, we definitely have something dropping soon in terms of Ruff.Figures.com and getting a figure from Ruff.Figures very soon, and to help out, something, someone, something, some organization in need. So definitely keep your eyes on social media for that. And I think that's about it.
That's about it.
Got anything else to add here, Mike?
I'm good until next time.
I am good until next time, too. We will see you next time here on Mid-South Memories. April shows, if you have any suggestions, but we'll probably use an April blood shower show, if we're being completely honest. But if you have any suggestions, if you're listening to this and you're an IWA fan and you have old photos, please send them to me. I'm trying to archive as many old IWA Mid-South photos as possible, because if I do not preserve the history of IWA Mid-South, it probably will never be preserved. So definitely send me your photos, definitely of during the late 90s, early 2000s era before everything became digital, if you have those anywhere. And with that being said, I think it is time to take it home. For Ruff of Ruff.Figures.com, and for me, Nick Maniwa, that's all I gotta say. I'm out of here.